Our entitled nanny always refuses to be available on a paid day and is taking advantage of our kindness, so we are surprising her with a dismissal. We hired our nanny back in June. We pay her 40 guaranteed hours a week, but we're upfront that we would likely only need her 32 hours a week and wouldn't need her on Wednesdays. I don't typically work that day, but I might get called into a meeting, want to run kid-free errands, or just have a little time to myself. I said even on the Wednesdays I have her come in, it wouldn't even be all day. I just wanted to guarantee that we would have care for our son if we needed it. That's why we paid for the full 40 hours. I usually tell her on Monday or Tuesday the week of if I need her. Since she started in June, I've asked her to work maybe 4 Wednesdays spread out. She worked the first 2 with me, telling her that Monday. I told her I would need her one Wednesday in September, letting her know the day before, and she said she made plans that day. I felt kind of weird about it, but ultimately let it go. I wanted to run some kid-free errands, but took the opportunity to spend time with my son. I found out last Friday that I'd have a meeting on Wednesday. I let the nanny know that night when I relieved her, and she said she had plans. I pointed out that I pay for her to be available on Wednesdays, and she said since I hadn't needed her to work one in weeks, she felt it was safe to make plans. After speaking with my husband, we let her have the day off under guaranteed hours. Luckily, a relative could watch my son while I attended my meeting. My husband feels we should have a sit-down as this is the second time it's happened. We're otherwise very happy with her. She's amazing with our son. I understand our need for these Wednesdays is sporadic, but I also thought guaranteed hours would be just that, a guarantee that she'd be available. She has PTO in the contract, so we're debating whether it's fine if she makes plans those days, but then she needs to submit it as PTO. We'd never deny PTO, but then she'd use it on these Wednesdays. Is that fair? We are first-time parents, so having a nanny is new. And as I said, she's amazing with our son. I'd just like to nip this in the bud now. Update 3 months later, we really loved our nanny until we ran into an issue a few months back. When we hired a nanny, we contracted her for 40 guaranteed hours a week while also being upfront. We probably wouldn't need her most Wednesdays, but wanted to have her contracted for that time for the rare opportunity we did. Nanny ended up taking advantage of this and treated it as though she'd have every Wednesday off, and if we asked her to come and giving her a minimum of 24 hours of notice, sometimes days of notice, she'd say she was busy despite being contracted and paid to work on that day. The main sub gave me some good advice, and we worked it out with her, seeming to understand guaranteed hours. She did seem to call our bluff once and tell me she couldn't come in on a Wednesday, but when I said she'd have to use PTO, she changed her tune and came in on Wednesdays when asked. Anyway, we recently ran into another issue. My brother is in town for work. He has a period between Friday meetings and wanted to take my son to the Children's Museum. We told our nanny that my brother would pick my son up around 10 a.m., take him, feed him lunch, and drop him off for a nap. We said during that time, she's free to do whatever. She's considering a 4 to 5 hour break because my son naps for 2 hours. I thought this would be ideal, but she's saying if my brother takes him, she doesn't want to deal with my son being all hyper from the activity and sad that his uncle is gone. We've never done this before, so I don't know how it'll necessarily go. However, the nanny takes him on outings all the time, and they come back at nap. I failed to see how this is much different. She really tried to insist that my brother watch him for the rest of the day. Which one, he can't do because of work. And 2, I found that very bold of her just to assume that was her choice. When I said no, she then tried to ask if me or my husband could take time off so she could have the rest of the day. I said if she really wants the day off, she'll have to use PTO. Once again, she folded and said it's fine. She'll watch him. This incident alone wouldn't bother me if we weren't so fresh from the previous incident. She's great with my son, but this unprofessionalism is starting to get to me, and I feel taken advantage of. My husband is also leaning toward finding a new nanny, but I'm nervous that this will continue. Would we be wrong to fire her over this? Should we have another discussion? Is this just how nannies are? We're first-time parents, and I just feel so lost. Update 2. I got a lot of awesome advice yesterday, and ultimately, after talking with my husband, we decided to start looking for a new nanny. I know some said just to have her come in even when I don't need her. One person even suggested having her go to the museum with my brother, all to show her that she has to work. It would not have been worth it if I had to treat her like a toddler. We are one and done for a reason. I don't need to constantly parent an adult and try to motivate them to do a good job. They should just want to. But I also advised waiting to let the nanny know what we were doing until we found a new one. In case she started calling out or slacking off, this morning when she arrived, I reminded her of the game plan for the day, telling her my brother would pick our son up and then be back by a certain time for the nanny to put our son to nap. Nanny seemed completely fine, so I headed to work. Around the time my brother picked up, he sent me a text saying that the nanny had asked him if he could keep our son all day. Thankfully, My brother didn't take full shot and told her no, reminding her when he'd return. I was already pissed and knew I'd have to talk to the nanny, but tried to calm down. When my brother arrived to drop our son back off, at the time, he said, the nanny wasn't there. My brother contacted me, and I called her. She said she had stepped out to run a few errands and would be back soon. My husband works 5 minutes from our house, so he worked from home the rest of the day to talk to her when she got back and relieve my brother. She didn't return for an hour. She had no way of knowing my husband had come home, so she just assumed my brother was there. My husband fired her. He says she acted surprised and tried to make excuses that she thought she had time. A part of me can't believe the audacity, but the other part is just glad to be done with her. We will make our expectations very clear to the next nanny. I try hard to be a good boss, and she was great with our son, but I can't take this irresponsibility.